today I brought the wonderful Bone Bridger and the incredible John Automates to join me in a discussion of a film that came out this weekend on Hulu called No One Will Save You. Writer-director Brian Duffield, he wrote it and directed it, and it's his second film ever that he's made. He's written a few things, but this is the first or second time, his second attempt at a full feature film. I'd love to hear your initial thoughts. And I also want to point out the only reason I found out about this film was because John had us discuss upcoming films through a trailer conversation that you guys can all check out. I'll put the link in the description down below. And it got me really excited to see it. And so we all actually wound up watching it this weekend individually. And I'd love to hear your initial thoughts before we do a little bit of a deep dive.
I think they really understand the rule, don't be boring. You can be frustrating, you can be crazy, you can do anything you want to do, but you can't be boring. This movie is the absolute definition of not boring. There were times I was frustrated, there was times I was shocked, there was times I was like, what is happening? And at the end, it left me with something that I did not see coming. Just that is good enough for any streaming movie. Like that blew me away that like it was worth my time.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot. I had a feeling I was like gonna like it a lot, but I liked it even more than I thought I was. But I also it wasn't what I thought it was. Like I thought it was gonna be something different, and it ended up being something completely different than what I thought, and I still liked it. And I think that's one of the hallmarks of like having a good movie, where it's like, yeah, we're gonna put a twist in here, but that twist is still going to be good, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that both of you kind of touched upon this. The fact that it's not boring, there is this twist. The fact that it's a silent film, essentially. There's,
Mhm.
I think, only two lines of dialogue in the whole film. I loved that. And what did you guys think about that? Did it ever bother you that there was no dialogue?
It frustrated me in a good way
Mm.
because at the beginning I was like, oh, okay, wait, are they doing this? Is it going to break? Why are they doing this? Is this just to be artsy? And then I realized that there was something else going on. And I was like, oh, this is supposed to represent something with this character. And I was like, okay, I can go with that. And you know what moment that, and this is not a huge spoiler by any means, the moment that really I was in on the movie is when the post office person was delivering the package and you hear him yell something and like shoot the package. So you hear him talk. So you know that they're not doing complete silence for a random reason, like he's talking. And then everyone's quiet around her. I really liked that.
I thought it was an artistic choice almost immediately. I don't think I minded it because I don't think I cared, because I think when thinking about A Quiet Place, the first one, not the second one, I thought that was one of the strengths of A Quiet Place, right? Like just that very quote unquote quiet type of atmosphere where no one's really talking, and then when you do talk, it's something of importance. And I thought they were going in the same direction here. This is one of the reasons why I don't really like the second one as much as I like the first one in terms of The Quiet Place. But I thought they were doing the same thing here with No One Will Save You. And yeah, I think if you can show an artistic style that works and something that continuously moves the story, because I thought the pacing wasn't bad here either, then I don't think people will care about that stuff as much. And then you start to realize like, oh, there's actually different ways you can take this.
Yes, and I love that you brought up A Quiet Place because it's so clear you would not have gotten a film like this if we had
Right.
never gotten A Quiet Place. Um, I want to talk a little bit about the look of the alien. My personal opinion is I thought it made a lot of sense. I know it is that very generic look that we normally see. I kind of feel though like the way that it looks scientifically makes sense. Did you guys enjoy the different interpretations throughout that alien species that we got throughout the movie?
I think they did a good job of kind of like keeping it grounded enough where you weren't. I'd say like Quiet Place for a lot of people is always going to be like a more intense example of what it would be like if something shows up that's truly like menacing and not really thinking, but you got to see these scenes where clearly it's thinking and it's walking around and there's things happening inside. Like it's not just like attacking. It's not just always on I liked that, but I think they chose wisely to not make it over the top I think they could have really messed that up. The timing of this movie definitely helps with all the alien talk too.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Especially now with all the conspiracies and everything like that. I like the fact that they the the spider like one was obviously the one that a lot of people probably talk about. It's in the trailer and everything like that. Um, when you think about A Quiet Place and you finally get the reveal, you're like, okay. But the thing about The Quiet Place, their monsters are, or their aliens, I should say, are, it's less about what they look like and more about how they act, right? So that's the whole thing there. If you think about something like Cloverfield, where we don't really see the monster until way later, the kaiju, if you will. And even then, it was a little underwhelming. You're just like, all right, it's just some creature. Whereas here, you're right, Nerdy Film Go. They went for the stereotypical, in certain cases, stereotypical look of what we deem an alien to be. But then you realize it's less about what they look like and more about what they do, especially as the movie goes on and you start really seeing what they're doing. And you're like, all right, well, cool. It's fine. I think it was perfectly fine.
Yeah, I kind of enjoyed it as well because when that first alien, spoilers by the way, when the first she kills the first alien, you kind of like in a weird way feel bad for it. And I kind of really liked that because who knows if he was, we don't know that they're evil yet. Yeah,
Right.
it's just someone coming into the house and you think about, oh, what would happen if an alien came into your house? And it is trying to attack her, but it could just be from fear and all that stuff. Um, I really loved the cinematography and the sound design. I
Mhm.
think that there's a shot that's in the trailer that I absolutely thought was just masterful, and it's when she's running out into by like the hallway, the foyer, and she gets hit in the face by the door, and everything's exploding around her. And I thought that was blocked so wonderfully, and it was just I think that Brian Duffield really did some really unique things here, showcasing his vision. What do you guys think about the cinematography and sound design?
The whole feel, and I'd put it all in one for this movie because that's where this movie I think this movie would have done huge numbers on Netflix. This is going to do like pretty good on Hulu, but this is the kind of movie I think that would have just done crazy numbers on something like Netflix because the feel is so immense because from the get go, it's why would anyone want to live there? Because it's remote, but it's not remote in like it's paradise kind of way. It's not like it's like a big open farm. It's like in the woods. You feel almost like overwhelmed. Like it has like a creepy feel to it. But then there's like the her with her home stuff. So they're blocking these scenes where she's walking around and you see these like she's dressed nicely. She's smiling. There's some like, oh, this is going to be feel good. And it's not that at all. I think that the way they filmed it with scale is so important because the drone shots, you get a good sense of the house, the aerials, like that there is nowhere to run to. Like there's really not. And later on that comes into play where it's like, where are you going to go? Who's going to help you? It kind of, I think it all played into, like, if you're a cinematographer, I feel like that was like I better not mess this up. Everything else is working. Everything is designed for me to do a good job. Like for a cinematographer, all you got to do is do the best you can. As opposed to like a Marvel movie or something where you don't get much time. It doesn't really matter. We're CGIing it. Throw a light up there. Move on.
I think there's some, I might get hate for this one, but I think there are some scenes in here that are better looking than Nope. And I thought Nope had really good
100%.
cinematography.
I
You
think this is
know,
a better movie than Nope.
I do as well. I think the thing that I liked about Nope when it came to that movie had nothing to do with the aliens. I liked a lot of the other side stuff that
Right.
was going on. And so like when it comes to, and so that's where I'm coming from a strictly alien perspective. I like this a lot better than Nope.
Right.
And I think that there are certain scenes, the light one specifically, where like some parts of the house are like blocking out the light and everything like that, and you can hear almost like that laser microwave-ish sound that kind of comes through, and it's like, but the house is almost used as like a way to stop it from penetrating through. Like there's things like that where you're like, okay, yeah, this is terrifying. This is legitimately like, I don't want this. And I think to use it, the home invasion angle, which is a realistic thing that does happen, which is terrifying in regular real life, but then add the aliens on top of it, just like amps it up a lot.
I 100% agree. And you know, it works so well on a screenwriting level because she's ostracized and has been ostracized from the
Mhm.
community. You know, that really works so well. No one would help her in any form, especially of what she had done. And that's just really a lack of communication in a lot of ways. Now I feel like her obsession, and maybe I'm misreading this, but I'm pretty sure this takes place in the current era, unless I'm wrong on this, because I found her obsession with the 1950s to be very relevant. But
Mhm.
now I was thinking about it and listening to you guys talk. I was like, wait a second, does this take place in the 1950s? But I'm pretty sure it
No,
does not.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Okay, so I love that she is obsessed with that era because that era is kind of associated with suppressing feelings. Everything's amazing, and you know she lives this fantasy lifestyle because she hasn't really confronted what she's done. Still writing letters to her friend, and I want this kind of brings me into the end because I think the end can be interpreted in a couple different ways. There's two interpretations on my end, and again, spoilers for anyone that hasn't seen the film yet. One is that once the aliens learn what happened to her and she kind of confronts her demons, they let her be the only one that is not brainwashed, and doesn't have this, you know, like that she isn't being controlled because they feel some type of sympathy for her. The other hand, she could also just be as brainwashed and controlled as everyone else, because we saw her when she kind of slips into that when that thing is down her throat. She is in that fantasy world and she snaps out of it. What do
Mm.
you guys think about the end of that? What do you think the aliens decided to do with her?
I have a different take than I think what a lot of
Oh,
people are going to
take
say.
it.
But go ahead.
Oh, sure.
This is not a good ending. And I don't mean it from film. Like it's a good ending in terms of like as a viewer, but as like a happy, sad, good, bad
Oh,
ending. This
right.
is not a good ending. This is
Right.
No.
actually a awful ending. Um, she there's two ways you could take it. I took it as they constructed a new reality around her, but that construction of that new reality is bent on the destruction of the entire human race, which means there's a level of selfishness there that she still ended up retaining, even though she ends up saying sorry at the end. So it's kind of one of those things that, like, I don't know if like this is really and I like the ambiguity of it because you could take it maybe 3 or 4 different ways, and I like that they kind of leave it up to interpretation. I think that some of the best movies do that, but there's like this is not good. It's not good for her. It's not good for humans. It's still at the end of the day only good for the aliens.
Hmm.
It did the one thing that I kind of is my gripe in alien movies is you never see the aliens win, and that is unrealistic. Because if they could show up, we've got to have a version where like you just lose, like they.
Yeah.
So I liked that from a sci-fi perspective of, and I never thought about it through the movie. I just assumed something good was going to happen, and it didn't. But on the second side, the Twilight Zone show was such a disappointment. I was beyond disappointed with what they did because they didn't put together anything that just made you go, oh, I don't think I'd watch this again. But it was good. That's the way I feel about this movie. I would tell someone else to watch it. I would tell you it was good. But the way it makes you feel in the end, I wouldn't watch it again. But that's not saying it's bad. It's just, it did its job. You leave there, you know the story, you learned, you experienced it, and you feel just like a little at the end. Like even no matter how you interpret it, it's a little bit like grim in a way. But I like that. Like that's what I want. Sometimes I want to watch a movie and it stick me so good that I can't watch it again willingly because it just throws me off.
What about the theory that she's the only one who's brainwashed and actually it's not humans at all? Like they
Oh,
just took
Oh.
her and
I
she's the
could roll
one
with
who
that.
they because if you go based off of like some of the powers that they showcase and everything like that, it could be one of those where her grief is the subject of exploitation or the subject of experimentation for the aliens. And then it's suddenly like, all right, well, regardless of whether they win or not, it's like, we're going to take her as our subject. And then it's like, because you remember at the end, she's in this kind of like idyllic world or a thought
Different
process
house.
at the
Yeah.
very least. And Nerdy Filbert, like you said, it's like, oh, now are we approaching that 1950? Like it's almost what her dream was, but it comes to life. And there's that theory out there that maybe, and that's why again, it's good because you can go in a variety of different directions.
Yeah, and I do like what you had said. I agree with you that it could absolutely be that way, and that's why it's there's so much to talk about. The other theory you brought up, I'm thinking about it. It does kind of make sense in that self-indulgent way because we do like her, but then as we see the story unfold itself, she could have been incredibly possessive of her best friend. There could have been a I'm in love with her, she's not in love with me, and it's very controlling, and then she took her anger out on her in the woods, and that's what happened. So if she at this point does, she's totally okay with aliens taking over and this whole world's around her and she's not brainwashed, maybe she is just a like super selfish person. Maybe that's another reason why people in the town don't like her.
It's it's crazy that I bought into a movie because my pet peeve with movies is you got to make me dislike a character or really like them. And I was so on the fence, and for that to work for so
Yeah.
long was because I usually bail out. Like I want to feel something towards a character, yes or no. Like make me push me one way or the other. Don't let me look at a character and be like good or bad. Because like I even feel like things like the Joker really pushes you. Like you may have like a natural leaning, but things start to happen and you're like, okay, like things are rough. I don't know. I get what y'all are saying because I could see at the end. I think my initial gut reaction was she is the only one that is real, like our actual human. I don't know if that means that they are humans being controlled or they're in some other place and they're using her as an experiment, and that's why it's a different location, different house, different. I don't know, but I felt like she's the only person that's getting to be her.
Mm.
Did either one of you see that movie years ago called The Signal? And that
No.
was a alien movie. It had Olivia Cook was in it, Lawrence Fishburne was in it, but basically it's not too dissimilar premise wise in terms of the kid who was in it. He ends up like at the end breaking through reality, and it comes to find out that that reality is that he's already on an alien ship. Like he was never on Earth to begin with. He's on the
Oh,
ship, and they had basically built up this reality of what things were through his memories. And so like when I saw that ending, that's what made me think about like The Signal in terms of like what that was, because it's like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that deals with memory here and a lot of stuff that deals with past grief, past trauma, trying to get out of it. Whether that's interpreted or not by the director, it's one of those where that's what is shown. And so it felt like it would be easy to see it going in that direction.
Yeah, I love that. That's why I had to have you guys on for this because I love films where there's just so much to, really dive into and pick apart and all the theories that have come from this film. I'm sure there's going to be even more as more people see it. I wanted to point out one last thing. And it's a side note. I love the fact that she was obsessed with the 1950s because that's when a lot of people were obsessed with aliens and space. And it reminded me of, we just saw Asteroid City over the summer, and that was that era that was obsessed with space. And it's very fitting in so many ways, as we discussed, of that era that she's obsessed with. It's a very isolating life. I'm still a little confused about her father and mother. Her mother died of cancer, I think. And then I don't know what happened to the father, though, but maybe you guys, or it's just not spoken about.
I don't know.
It wasn't. I think it was a lot of it more geared towards. It was a lot of it was more geared towards her friend's father so much that
Yeah.
I think it kind of doesn't necessarily skip over, but it just isn't as it's not as broached, I would say.
Yes. Okay. Cool. I was thinking the same thing, and I just wanted to make sure for anyone that's listening that that we cleared that up. Any last thoughts on the film? Or do you guys want to see more space alien movies? Because I was really actually excited that it was an alien film. It's been a bit since we got a really good one. What are you guys looking forward to seeing? Or you think that's going to be a trend in the future?
This is the new era. I think sci-fi, we've all talked about this. It's about to
Mhm.
just absolutely take over, especially sci-fi horror and sci-fi thrillers. I mean, it's about to be the era of sci-fi. And I really think that this is the kind of movie that will do well on streaming. You have to have something that's like the budget has to be reasonable. And this is where this movie really succeeds is that the budget is not crazy. Whereas like Nope, they had to make a certain amount of money in theaters, and there's an expectation. and a cost with big name actors. And not to say she's like not a big name actress, but comparatively to like who they had in that movie, yeah. I hope this is the trend going forward because this would be a lot of fun. I highly recommend watching it at 3 a.m. like I did. It is a whole nother experience.
So the budget on this was 25 million or a little bit less, if I have that correctly, which is perfect for an alien movie because a lot of it went to the visuals.
Right.
You need to have films like this. And I think this film kind of like reminded me and probably will remind a lot of people of. This is not a bottle film per se, but it is a solo-ish film where there's not a lot of characters or anything like that. It's very specific. And I think you can do that really well with horror, and you can do that really well with sci-fi, which is where I think we're going to be going down, whether it's one, the other, or both combined. I think this is also a major win for Hulu. And if Hulu and even all the others, right? Like we see Netflix do stuff like this as well. If they can kind of keep around the $25 to $40 million movie and just kind of pump those out. Every now and again, you have something big. Prey on Hulu was like $60 million, right? But like if they can keep it under a certain amount and just kind of get out a good performance, get out a good movie, that's going to not only help that movie, it's going to help your brand. It's going to help your streaming network of like, yeah, this has this. They tend to have these kinds of movies. I wouldn't be surprised. And then even if you think about the writer strikes, actor strikes, and things like that, I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing way more smaller films like these. And I think it's a good movie. I think it's a win, and I think we get more of it.
I'm glad you brought up the budget and the visual effects because the visual effects were absolutely fantastic. And it's like, can anyone learn a lesson here? Like, my goodness, it looked so gorgeous and it looked so realistic. I think we're going to always, complain about that till things get a little bit more fixed in the industry when it comes to the visual effects industry. But thank you so much, both of you. And if you have seen this film, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, or if you're looking forward to it. If you haven't seen it, I hope you didn't watch most of this yet because we did a lot of spoilers. But thanks so much for stopping by, and we'll see you all next time.